And welcome to the Stearns County Board of Adjustments public hearing for March 25th, 2021. We have still two members that may join us as we move along here. So right now, for roll call, I believe we have Jill, Mike, Dennis, Jacob, myself, Bonnie Mossman, the chair, and we are waiting on Jason and Dave, and hopefully they will be able to join us shortly. In response to the COVID-19 and pursuant to Minnesota statute, Chapter 12, relating to emergency management, Governor Walz has declared a state of emergency, and in response to the state of emergency and in accordance with the Minnesota statute, Chapter 13D.021, the Board of Adjustments members and the applicant may participate by telephone or other electronic means. And the meeting is being broadcast live on the county website at Meetings on Demand. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a few announcements before we begin the meeting. All the testimony this evening is being tape recorded for the record. So when you're going to speak, if you are one of the applicants, please state your name and your current address for the record, and then go ahead with your input after you've been recognized by the chair. Board members, we ask that when you speak, please state your name. That helps us keep the record straight as to who's making what comments. The members of the Board of Adjustment are appointed by the County Board of Commissioners with one member from each of the 5 commissioner districts, one member at large, and one member appointed from the Planning Commission. A brief overview of how our proceedings work this evening. I will read the variance request and open the public hearing. While I'm reading your request, I would ask that the applicant be ready to speak with us. I'll ask the Environmental Services staff to then give a brief overview of the requested variance and the staff report, and if there's any correspondence that's been received in regard to this request. And then we'll go to the applicant and we will ask them to provide any information they would like to provide. And once the applicant and or their representative have provided their testimony, the board can discuss the request and ask any questions of staff or the applicant. Upon completing the board questions, then I'll ask, then we'll move on to closing the public hearing. Once the public hearing is closed, there would be no further input from the audience, from the applicant or environmental services unless they are recognized by the chair or if the board members want to have some type of clarification. Our first item on the agenda for this evening is the approval of the February 25th, 2021 meeting minutes.
So moved, Dennis Gregory.
All right, we have a motion from Dennis. Is there a second?
Second, Jill DeLong.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Then moving on to our first regular agenda item is to consider a continued request from Catherine and William Orr Jr., Plymouth, Minnesota, from sections 10.211A2 of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance of 439 to construct a new residential dwelling ahead of the established building line. The said ordinance requires a new residential dwelling to be constructed at or behind the established building line. The affected property is 0.14 acres of part of Government Lot 13, Section 3, Tract 122 North, Range 29 West of Main Prairie Township, with a property address of 9837 Eclipse Road, Kimball, Minnesota. And this item was continued from our meeting this past Tuesday, March 22nd. We'd ask that the board members that were present at that meeting, we'll ask you to make motions and vote on this item with suggesting that those who are not present at that meeting would abstain. All right, are the applicants with us this evening?
Yes, we're here.
Okay, good. Staff, can you give us an update if there's been any changes or any information that you'd like to present to us?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Just to kind of reiterate, this is to construct a new dwelling ahead of the established building line. The findings of fact that were obtained Monday night are the ones that you see on your screen right now. And so really what we're doing, I've had a little bit of a conversation with Mr. Orr about the mitigation options that were offered by Soil and Water Conservation District. So there, you know, he is now aware of those recommendations, and I think at this point you guys can go through your discussion making a motion for this.
Okay. All right, Mr. Orr, is there anything that you wanted to comment about your discussion with the proposed conditions?
No, Jamie made it very clear about what was being suggested, and I understand it.
All right, thank you. Then we're looking for board members. Is there someone that is?
Madam Chair, members of the board, I just want to let you guys know that I did get some clarification from Mr. Berg at the Soil and Water Conservation District. Mr. Orr brought up a good point that if you look at the mitigation options that are on the aerial photo, Shelley, can you go up to the next one? Next one. Oh, maybe we don't have it there. There it is. Okay, so those mitigation options, if you see the area where he says new buffer area 25-foot minimum, new buffer area 25-foot minimum, and access area 25, Mr. Orr brought up a good point that there is only 60 feet of lake frontage. So when I talked with Mr. Berg about that, he said the 25-foot buffer areas were in reference to the distance from the ordinary high in towards the home. He wasn't necessarily saying there should be 75 feet of frontage there. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you for that clarification. I think we were all kind of looking at that 25 feet going the other direction.
Right. And one other thing that he did mention, that their standard for these types of buffers, they recommend that 25% be open for the access area. So if you take 25% of 60 feet, the access area in this situation, their recommendation again would be to have 15 feet of access area, and then the rest would be buffer. Now, he also did say that it should be up to you guys as board members to decide, is that the way it should be or not?
Okay, thank you.
That was just their recommendation.
All right, if we have some discussion then from board members in regard to this proposed condition. Anyone have thoughts on what that distance should be, if this condition should be included?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, as we were discussing last on Monday night, this is a new construction, and I think, you know, regardless of the fact that each one of these applicant requests are unique based on the, you know, specific conditions of that property, I do think it would be not good policy to allow a new construction that is cited not meeting the setback requirements and not having a mitigation plan. So I think it should be one or the other. And it seems that the applicants are more interested in a mitigation plan. And so I would suggest that we move ahead with the suggested mitigation plan by SWCD. And I personally would be open to a 25-foot access area. 15 feet can get pretty small when you're trying to access the lake. And I think our key component here is trying to get the water to go through an area where it can be filtered before it hits the lake.
Okay. And one question I would have with that recommendation, if we went with a 25-foot buffer, would we be specifying how much on each side, or just any 25 feet along that area that they would choose to have their access point? I mean, I'm thinking sometimes it depends upon the shoreline, what is the best 25 feet to have the access on. Would other board members agree with that or disagree?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, the map that Mr. Berg provided did not show water flow. And so I don't know if the water flows to one side or the other. Obviously, the objective here is to get the water to be filtered through. So it would be helpful maybe if Mr. Berg would help determine which side or of the property would be best served with the buffer.
Madam Chair, members of the board, can I offer some opinions that I got from Greg on that as well?
Yes, please do.
Okay, he said that there is kind of currently right now, the way the property sits, there is kind of a ridge at the lake. So basically there is no way for that water to get over that ridge. So he just said a buffer anywhere would be good. And that's kind of why he put together, I don't know if everybody had a chance to see that other second page where he put the green box on there. He was showing that the house should drain towards the lake, and the lake currently drains at the lake, it currently drains back towards the house. And so what he was, it's that one. So what he was specifying there was he just doesn't want the property owners to go and fill in that kind of middle area with fill so that everything drains to the lake. He recommended keeping it the way it is right now. So he's showing with those red arrows coming from the lake that currently right now it kind of drains towards the middle of the property to that grassy area there. Does that make sense?
So Jamie, a follow-up question to that, because it says long grass on here. So is Mr. Berg indicating that the normal buffer grass would not be in there?
Correct. He's just saying it's lawn grass right now. Those are the existing conditions right now. There's the existing sand and there's existing lawn grass. Kind of that area where those red arrows are adjacent to the lake there is kind of where that buffer area would be right now, along with their access area, obviously, as well.
Okay. So it sounds like that, from that information, Jamie, that it would really be up to the property owner to put the buffer.
Correct. He said it didn't matter to him whether we put it in the center. I think he kind of put it there because that's where their dock was.
Sure.
If you look at the aerial photo, he figured that they typically have their dock there because you usually, when you pull your dock out, you just pull it straight back away from the lake. You don't kind of, jog it around on the property. So that's why he put the access area in the middle there. Now, if you guys want to leave that up to the property owner, you could certainly do that as well.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Any other comments or questions from board members?
I'd be okay with saying having at least one buffer area that's 25 feet deep from the shoreline. That way it kind of leaves it up to the property owner. They can work with what's best for their property, and we still do get that buffer area.
Okay, other comments?
Dave Gamrad.
Go ahead, Dave.
I would kind of agree with that. I think that it should be, there should be a minimum of buffered area, and it's up to the landowner how he orchestrates those buffered areas in.
Okay, other comments? All right, it sounds like we're maybe ready to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
I'll second. Dave Gamrod.
All right, and is there anyone opposed to closing the public hearing? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. Findings of fact have already been done. Is there any comments that you'd like to add to findings of fact after the conversation we've just had? If you want to look over the findings of fact that are on the screen. And hearing none, we'll just accept the findings of fact as they were originally done. And then we are ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I'd make a motion that we approve the applicant's request for a variance to construct a new residential dwelling ahead of the established building line with a condition that they implement the buffer as recommended by SWCD on 35 feet of their lake shore, leaving 25 feet open. They can choose which 25 feet they leave open, and that buffer would extend 25 feet landward from the ordinary high water level.
All right. Do we have a second to that motion?
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, I'll second that.
All right, we have a second to that motion, and I'll do roll call of the members that were present the other evening. Jill?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Motion carries. The ORs, if you have additional questions, you can contact county staff during regular business hours via the phone. Thank you for being with us a second time this week, and hopefully you can go forward with your plans from here.
Madam Chair?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Jill?
I just wanted to say thank you to Jamie, staff, and the SWCD. I know this is a lot of technical stuff, and you always do such an excellent job of, learning these things and helping to communicate them both to us and to the property owners. So thank you for all your hard work.
All right. Thank you, Jill. I think we all
Thanks, Jamie.
concur.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item. Oh, and members, if you please can note that the revised agenda that was sent out, some of the ones are in different order than they were on the original agenda. So please note they might not be going in the order of agenda items as you have them in front of you. So our next item for this evening is item number 2 on board members' agendas or on their packet numbers. So item number 2 is to consider a request for Rick Schmidt, South Haven, Minnesota, from sections 9.9.9A1 of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 and section 6.2.1P, Table M, of the Stearns County Subsurface Sewage Treatment System Ordinance 422 to construct a second-story addition and overhang less than 10 feet from the side property line, less than 10 feet from the subsurface sewage treatment system sewage tanks, and less than 20 feet from the subsurface sewage treatment system soil treatment area. The said ordinance requires a 10-foot setback to the side property line, a 10-foot setback to the subsurface sewage treatment system sewage tanks, and a 20-foot setback to the subsurface sewage treatment system soil treatment area. The affected property is Lot 17 of Coes Augusta Shores, Section 11, Tract 121 North, Range 28 West of Fairhaven Township. The property address is 2691 Arrowwood Road, South Haven, Minnesota. And Mr. Schmidt, are you with us this evening?
Yes, I am.
All right, we'll be back to you in just a moment.
Okay.
Now we could have the report from the staff, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The applicant currently owns lot 17 of Coes Augusta Shores. Coes Augusta Shores was platted in 1956. The tract contains 19,630 square feet according to the survey provided by the applicant. It's in the R1 zoning district. The applicant purchased the property in 2020. There is an existing 1,168 square foot residential dwelling that was constructed in 1964 prior to the official controls. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the dwelling consists of septic tanks permitted and installed in 1979 and 2008, with a drain field system that was also installed in 2008. The system was certified compliant in 2020. The applicant is proposing to construct a 42-foot by 32-foot, 1,344 square foot second-story addition onto the existing residential dwelling. Also, a 24-foot by 6-foot, 144 square foot overhang on the road side of the dwelling. A licensed engineer has signed off that the existing foundation of the dwelling can support the load of the proposed second-story addition. The existing dwelling is located in the floodplain of Lake Augusta. If the variance is granted, the applicant will be required to meet the floodplain standards. An additional conditional use permit will be required to be obtained by the applicant since the existing crawl space on the dwelling is below the regulatory flood protection elevation. A licensed engineer has developed a plan for meeting the design standards of the state building code. As part of the CUP process, the plans will be reviewed and approved by DNR to ensure compliance with floodplain requirements. The property is in the floodplain and shoreland overlay district of Lake Augusta classified recreational development. Augusta is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients. The subsurface sewage treatment system was certified compliant in 2020. The current impervious lot coverage is approximately 25.2%. The proposed impervious coverage when the project is complete will be approximately 24.9%. The applicant has agreed to remove some of the driveway that will no longer be accessible with the home addition if this variance is granted. Fairhaven Township, I should go back to, it will be 24.9 with what he's removing back into pervious. Fairhaven Township, Clearwater River Watershed District, Lake Augusta Association, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. And we have not received any correspondence with regard to this request.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll do roll call as far as who was able to visit the site. Dennis?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And I also visited the site. All right. All right, we'll go to the applicant. If you have things that you'd like to share with us.
I guess just that we're bought the place hoping to add on and make it our lake home. Just trying to get everything done the right way. It's a lot of things in this house that need to be done to update it structurally, electrical, plumbing. And if we're going to do all this other work to it, I'd like to make it the way we would like it, because this is our forever home.
Okay, thank you. Now, board members, if there's anyone that has questions for either staff or the applicant.
Madam Chair, Mike Kane.
Go ahead, Mike.
Question for staff. so we don't arise to this other issue like we had with the DNR, you said they will inspect the floodplain issue with the crawl space, so that will be taken care of before the plans are approved?
Madam Chair, members of the board, that is correct. The plan that he has provided as part of his application explains how they will do that. There are vents that they put on in the foundation of the structure, and those vents open when in times of flood to let the waters come into that crawl space, and then the waters then go out as well. And so it's like it allows the home to get rid of that static pressure from the flood waters. And so that will be verified and taken care of as part of the CUP process.
Okay, and then also it looked like you had a structural engineer out there for the calculation of the weight. Did they also verify the foundation to make sure that everything is okay as far as building, so you don't get into it and then end up deciding the house needs to be, the foundation removed at some point?
What I can say, Madam Chair, members of the board, is that the structural engineer said it can hold the weight. Now, whether or not he made that determination, it was not in his letter. We just asked if we just require them to have a structural engineer look at it. And that might be something for us to talk about in the future. We've now had 2 situations where they had this structural engineer sign off on it, and it, didn't work for them. So, that will have to be something we as staff and the board maybe has a conversation about is this really doing what we're wanting it to do? Because I can't say for sure if this foundation will be able to hold it. According to the structural engineer, it says it should be able to, but again, I don't know how deep that structural engineer and maybe the applicant can, if he was there when the structural engineer was there, maybe he can offer some information regarding that.
Yes, I can. I dug down the foundation before the structural engineer came so that we could get to the bottom of where the footings and everything is.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it in 2 spots of the house. And he came and looked at it, and I guess he has a formula of, I can't explain how he does it, but he has a formula that he did with what was there with the footings and everything. And that's how he come to the decision that, yeah, this will absolutely be able to hold it. And then said it would actually hold a lot more than what, we're wanting to put up.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Schmidt, just so you kind of understand why we're questioning this, over the past few months, we've had a couple situations in which a structural engineer signed off on something, and then when the people started tearing the sidewalls off, they discovered that they couldn't use the foundation or the structure that was there, and it put the applicant in a really tough spot. So we want to make sure that you aren't put in a tough spot by having an engineer say you can do it and then halfway through construction or partway through construction finding out you can't. So we're just trying to, help prevent, future problems like that. That's why these questions are being asked. Additional questions from board?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, a little bit of a comment, but also interested in the applicant's feedback. It seems like the neighboring properties are all single-story structures, and the house across the road, it looks like a Thomas Brandt, is also a single-story. And it would seem that if the applicant's house was now a 2-story house, that would remove a view of the lake by Mr. Brandt. And so just curious about the applicant's thoughts or comments on that.
I've talked to the neighbor about it, and actually from his house, you can't see the lake anyway. You can't see over my house and see the lake anyway. The only way to see the lake is from his site is actually if he walks out his door and you can see in between the garage and the house. That's how he gets his view. But I thought he said, go for it. He's all for it. He didn't mind at all that I was doing this. And same with all my other neighbors. I know there's a few other houses that are a 2-story, about 1, 2, 3, like 5, 6 houses down towards the east, and then like 3 houses down towards the west. There's houses that are 2 stories. But yeah, they can't see the lake from that house unless they're looking in between my garage or in between the houses.
Madam Chair, Dave.
Go ahead.
Uh,
Go ahead, Dave.
I was looking at that viewing issue, and I determined that in the summertime, when all the trees are out, he couldn't see the lake regardless. If they took all the trees down, possibly he could, but I don't think either landowner would take all the trees down. But I was watching the possibility of it being a block for him, and I spent some time looking at it and figured that it would not be an issue.
And I would agree with you, Dave. We drove back and forth on the road there and looked from different angles and agreed that the neighbor really wasn't having a view currently. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, we'd be ready for a motion to close the public hearing.
Dave Gamrod also move.
All right, we have a motion to close. Do I have a second?
Second, Mike Kane.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there anyone opposed to closing the public hearing? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed, and we will begin with findings of fact. Number 1, the variance request is to construct a second-story addition and overhang less than 10 feet from the side property line, less than 10 feet from the subsurface sewage treatment system sewage tanks, and less than 20 feet from the subsurface sewage treatment system soil treatment areas. Okay, number 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located.
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, it's R1 zoned area and it's R1 zoned construction.
All right, we have a yes for number 1. Does anyone disagree with that? Hearing none, I'll mark it as unanimous yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any related ordinances, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong. Yes, I do believe it is in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the controls. Those sewage treatment systems are existing. They've been there for decades and they have been certified compliant. I believe that in best practice, it would be in a different spot, but considering that these have existed there for a long time, so that means they are serviceable, that I think it is in harmony.
All right, we have a yes for number 2. Is there anyone that disagrees with yes for number 2? Okay, hearing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong. I believe, yes, it is consistent with the comprehensive plan under lakeshore living policies. Number 3, to discourage the alteration of natural shorelands and the creation of impervious surface in nearshore areas. So because they are right near the shoreland, I think if they had to dig up those tanks and move them someplace else, that would be more disturbance than is necessary.
Okay, we have a yes for number 3. Does anyone disagree with that? Hearing none, I'll mark them as unanimous yes. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrod.
Go ahead.
I I believe that it is reasonable for him to go up instead of out because he doesn't have any space left. So it's the only way that he can gain more livable space, and that's reasonable.
Okay, we have a yes for number 4. Does anyone disagree with that? Hearing none, I'll mark it as unanimous, yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, I believe the cabin and garage already existed in the location, and as Jill said, he's going to be going up, so he's not going on any more additional space on the land. He's going to be going up, so it's the uniqueness of that property.
All right, we have a yes for number 5. Does anyone disagree with that? Hearing none, I'll mark it as unanimous, yes. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone. It is an addition. We addressed the concern of the sight line for neighboring properties. There were some other 2 stories within the proximity of this location. So it does maintain the essential character of the area.
Okay, we have a yes for number 6. Does anyone disagree with that? Okay, hearing none, we'll mark it as unanimous, yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad.
Go ahead.
I don't believe economics were a part of this discussion.
Okay, thank you. We have a yes for number 7. Does anyone disagree with yes for 7? Hearing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes, and we are ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I would make a motion that we approve the applicant's request for a variance to construct a second-story addition and overhang less than 10 feet from the side property line, less than 10 feet from the subsurface sewage treatment system, and less than 20 feet from the sewage treatment, soil treatment area, with 2 conditions. The first condition being that the applicant will need to obtain a conditional use permit to meet the floodplain standards. And the second condition is that the applicant removes the existing impervious area on the driveway that they've committed to prior to the issuance of the construction site permit.
All right, thank you. We have a motion with 2 conditions. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I will do roll call. Jill?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. Motion carries. Mr. Schmidt, if you have any additional questions about your request, you can ask staff via phone during regular business hours. And thanks for joining us this evening.
Yeah. Thank you.
Go ahead with your plans.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you. The third item on our agenda this evening, board members, is labeled agenda item number 1 in your packet. So to consider a request from Heidi Everett and Emil Towner of Avon, Minnesota from section 6.2.1P table M and 6.5 of the Stearns County Subsurface Sewage Treatment System and zoning ordinance 439 to allow a new residential dwelling on a holding tank and to locate the dwelling less than 10 feet from the holding tank. Also to leave as constructed a residential dwelling and a deck less than 30 feet from a township road right-of-way and less than 100 feet from the OHWL of Pine Lake classified natural environment. The said ordinance does not allow for holding tanks for a new residential dwelling, require a structure setback of a township road right-of-way and a minimum 100-foot setback to the OHWL of a lake classified natural environment. The affected property is lots 9 and 10, Block 1, Betty's West Pine Beach, Section 12, Track 125 North, Range 31 West of Albany Township. And the property address is 36618 Pine Lake Road, Avon, Minnesota. And are the applicants with us?
Yes.
All right, and we'll be back to you in just a couple minutes. We will do a roll call as to who was able to visit the site. Dennis?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes, and I spoke with Mr. Towner. He indicated that the home they're living in still has a hitch, has tires. It's just got skirts for the winter weathering, that it is still road legal. And he indicated that it's still, from his point of view, that it still is like an RV, and the sewage treatment system is existing and it hasn't changed. They're just living there all year round instead.
Okay. And Mike?
Yes, I was there.
Dave?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And I also visited the location. All right, if now we can have a report from staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. One item I would like to clarify or make a change to is we received comment from Albany Township. They wanted us to verify and make the change that it is not an actual township road, because they do not maintain this road. So it's actually an unclassified road. Okay? The applicants currently own lots 9 and 10, Block 1 of Betty's West Pine Beach. Betty's West Pine Beach was platted in 1964. The tract contains a total lot area of 14,619 square feet above the ordinary high water level of Pine Lake. The property is in an R1 zoning district. The applicants purchased the property in 2019. There is currently a 255 square foot residential dwelling with a 468 square foot deck that were located on the property without a permit in 2019. There is also a 406 square foot residential accessory structure that was allowed by variance, permitted, and constructed in 1999. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the existing dwelling consists of a holding tank that was allowed for a previous RV, permitted and installed in 1999. The system was certified compliant 2019. On 4/22/1999, variance was granted to locate an RV accessory structure and holding tank closer to the ordinary high water level than required and closer to the road. On 4/26/1999, construction site permit and septic permit were granted for the RV accessory structure in the holding tank. On 1/15/2020, we received a complaint regarding a new residential dwelling and deck on the property without a permit. On 2/22/2021, Albany Township variance granted to allow the residential dwelling that doesn't meet the livable space requirements of the township ordinance. So the applicants are asking to keep on a holding tank the existing 255 square foot residential dwelling that is located 75 feet from the ordinary high water level, 6 feet from Pine Lake Road or Pine Lake Road right of way, and 2 feet from the existing holding tank. Also to keep the existing 468 square foot deck that is located 59 feet from the ordinary high water level and 15 feet from Pine Lake Road right of way. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Pine Lake, classified natural environment. Pine is not on the list of impaired waters. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the existing dwelling consists of a holding tank that was installed in 1999. The system was certified compliant in 2019. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is 19%. The proposed impervious lot coverage, if the variances are granted, will remain 19%. Albany Township, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. And we have not received any correspondence with regards to this request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then the applicant, if you'd like to share your thoughts with us, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I did want to just correct one statement that is in the background. And it says that a deck was located on the property without a permit in 2019. I have since come to understand that there is no permit, but the deck was located on the property prior to 2019. And if the board would want evidence of that, I can show the appraisal from 2018, which does show the deck and it does factor it in. So the deck was already built. Again, it has since come to my understanding that the previous owners built the deck without a permit. I am not, trying to deal with that permit part. We're happy to deal with the county to do whatever fees need to be paid for the permitting of that. But I did just want to correct the record that we didn't come onto the property and build anything or do anything without asking. And I know that the way that this is written, it does say that we have located a residence without a permit. And I understand that what we're dealing with here is a semantic issue where if we are residents here after so many days, I guess it turns into a dwelling. But I did just want to point the board to the email that we sent to the county in November of 2018. So we were very, very conscious of our intentions, and we wanted to make sure that we did everything right from the front end. At that time that we sent that email, we were told that because we're just moving one RV out and putting another RV in, that it wouldn't need permitting. I guess the concept of it being a dwelling had not come up, but that email does show, we wanted to be very clear. We understood the rules. We were moving an RV in here. We weren't trying to move the septic. We did not construct the deck. We weren't moving anything. We put the RV in the same location. Our goal from the beginning, even back in 2018, was to make sure we were doing this right, because we do like this area. We love this lake. We love this road. We like the character of the road, and we didn't want to do anything that was not going to be within the character or within the boundaries of what the county would allow. So from the beginning, our intentions were to work with the county, and hopefully the board and Madam Chair, you see that as evidenced in the documents that we provided.
All right, thank you. Now, if we have board members that have questions for either the staff or the applicant.
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, question for staff. Are there any precedents or other ordinances regarding tiny homes for the county?
Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have any specific wording for tiny homes in our ordinance. We have a definition of a recreational vehicle, and we have a residential dwelling in our ordinance. And our definition of recreational camping vehicle comes directly from Minnesota state statute, comes from section 327.14. And it talks about, it basically states any vehicular portable structure built on a chassis designated to be used as a temporary dwelling for travel, recreational, and vacation uses. And that's where our department came to the conclusion that this is not just a temporary dwelling. And so that's why we've made the determination that it is actually a residential dwelling rather than a recreational vehicle.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, just a comment. The applicant did a great job of answering all the questions I have. but I do wonder about the applicant's comment about he loves the road. I just about didn't make it up and down that road. And so, you know, I don't want to impugn the credibility of the applicant, but I don't know how he can love that road.
Madam Chair and members of the board, if I could just comment, since I've been here, I've actually taken over some leadership of the road, and because the township has disowned it, and the county has said it's the township's road, and the township says it's the county, I've actually worked with the DNR, and the road should be fixed this spring. It was due to be fixed last fall, and so if you come out and visit us again, hopefully you'll have a better experience.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I have also driven down that road too many times in the last 6 months.
Yes, so we're very glad to hear that improvements are on the docket for it. All right, additional questions from board members? Okay, hearing none, it sounds like we're ready for findings. Looking at the findings of fact, we're able to do it either as one finding for the concerns of the dwelling and the holding tank and the or along with the concerns for the deck with the right of way and unless the distance from the OHWL, or we can do the dwelling and the deck as separate findings. What are the wishes of the board?
Madam Chair, I would make a motion first to close the public hearing.
Oh, yes, thank you. And do we have a second for that?
I'll second it, Mike Keen.
Okay, anyone opposed to closing the public hearing? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. And what are the board's wishes as far as doing the findings together or separately?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I would suggest we do them together.
All right, any other comments? And I would agree.
Agree.
I agree. Jill DeLong.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like the majority agreed to do one findings of fact. This findings of fact is for the variance request to allow a residential dwelling on a holding tank and to locate the dwelling less than 10 feet from the holding tank. Also to leave as constructed a residential dwelling and a deck less than 30 feet from a township road right of way and less than 100 feet from the OHWL of Pine Lake classified natural environment. And as this is a after the fact application, the questions will be worded slightly differently. Number one, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, the property is an R1 zoning district and it is allowed to live in a structure in an R1 zoning district.
All right, we have a yes for number one. Does anyone disagree with yes? Hearing none, we will mark that as unanimous yes. Number two, is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, in this case, the applicant didn't really change anything on the property that was there prior, and they also have existing buffers on the property to mitigate any impact on the lake. So I think this is very much in harmony with the general purposes.
All right, thank you. We have a yes for number two. Does anyone disagree with that?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I'm not going to say that I disagree with it, but I just want to call in, it is kind of a gray area where it doesn't sound like our current ordinances really handle living in an RV very well, at least in this situation, especially as these lake lots get smaller and smaller and harder to meet all the requirements of an ordinance. A tiny home in this situation seems to be a good fit, even if the ordinances may not have been written with tiny homes in mind.
All right, thank you. Well, those comments then have been added to the record. So we do have a yes for number two. Does anyone disagree with that? Yes. Okay, hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 3, is the variance request consistent with the comprehensive plan?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, I believe under the living goals, in this case particularly, number 3, support housing options that give people in all stages and of all economic means viable choices for safe, stable, and affordable homes.
All right, we have a yes for number 3. Does anyone disagree? Hearing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 4, is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by an official control?
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, I believe it's a reasonable manner they're putting a recreational vehicle / small house on a area that they want to enjoy the lake and the distance from the lake and the road. It's a good compromise where they're locating it, and I believe it's in harmony with that.
All right, thank you. We have a yes for number 4. Does anyone disagree? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Is the plight of the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner?
Dave Namrod, I would say that it is unique to the property because he's done a good job of not disturbing anything and upgraded his living quarters, and I would commend him for that.
And I think it's also unique to the situation because I think, as stated before, I believe by Jill, was that these homes are going to be probably become more common, and this is so it's a good thing for us to take a look at this. So it is rather unique. So we have a yes for number 5. Is there anyone disagrees with yes for 5? Okay, hearing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 6, will the variance maintain the essential character of the locality?
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, I believe the character of the neighborhood is not going to be impacted by this being there.
All right, we have a yes for number 6. Anyone disagree?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I want to agree and also state that it was a site for an RV before. They have an RV there now, so that does not change at all.
Yes, and I would also add that this area has RVs and regular residences, so it's quite a mixture already. We have a yes for number 6. Anyone disagree? We'll mark that as unanimous yes. And number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, economics were not discussed. This is about a living choice versus economics.
Okay, and we have a yes for number 7. Anyone disagree? Hearing none, I'll mark it unanimous yes. We are ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I would make a motion that we approve the applicant's request for a variance to allow a new residential dwelling on a holding tank and to locate the dwelling less than 10 feet from that holding tank. Also to leave as constructed a residential dwelling and deck that's less than 30 feet from the township road right-of-way and less than 100 feet from the ordinary high water level of Pine Lake, with the condition that the applicant maintains the existing buffer that they currently have, allowing for a 25-foot wide lake access, and that they submit to environmental services on their site plan survey the size and location of the buffer that currently exists.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion with, I believe, 2 conditions. Is there a
Madam
second?
Chair, I second. Jill DeLong.
All right, thank you. And we'll do roll call. Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Motion carries. If you have more questions about your request, you can check with staff during regular business hours via phone. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board.
All right, our next item is our fourth item on the agenda, but it is number 3 in your packets. To consider a request from Brian Anstein, Avon, Minnesota, from section 6.2.11 and 10.2.11A1A of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to leave as constructed a residential accessory structure in an R1 zoning district with an exterior color that doesn't match the exterior color of the principal residential building, and to locate the structure less than 100 feet from the OHWL of a lake classified as recreational development. The said ordinance requires a residential accessory structure in an R1 zoning district to be similar in exterior color to the principal residential building, and for the structure to be located 100 feet from the OHWL of a lake classified as a recreational development. The affected property is Lot 10 of Cool Shores, Section 8, Track 125 North, Range 30 West of Avon Township. The property address is 36669 Pelican Lake Road, Avon, Minnesota. And is the applicant with us?
Present.
All right, thank you. We'll be back to you in just a few minutes. We'll do roll call as to who was able to visit the site. Dennis?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes, and I did speak with the applicant. He indicated that part of the reason why it was built with the different color from the home was due to the unique construction of it. It's a sauna, and so the way that the wood was cut and built and constructed is why that he decided to make it that way.
Okay. Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jake?
Yep.
Jason?
Yes.
And I also visited the site. Okay. We'll go now to staff for an overview of the request.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The applicant currently owns Lot 10 of Cool Shores. Cool Shores was platted in 1959. The tract contains a lot area of approximately 23,385 square feet on Pelican Lake. The property is in the R1 zoning district. The applicant purchased the property in 2015. There is an existing 2,479 square foot residential dwelling with attached garage and a 209 square foot deck that are conforming structures. There is also a 128 square foot residential accessory structure that was constructed prior to the official controls. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the existing dwelling consists of a septic tank and drain field system that was permitted and installed in 1998. The system was certified compliant in 2019. Little about background information with regards to permits. On 8/26 of 2019, the property owner applied for a construction site permit to replace the existing entryway on the residential dwelling. On 9/10 of 2019, during the site visit for that permit, environmental services staff noticed what appeared to be a newer 12 by 8, 96 square foot residential accessory structure that was located between the dwelling and the north property line. Upon review of permits, it was determined that the 96 square foot accessory structure was not permitted and was not meeting the required setback to the existing dwelling and property line. Now, to kind of clarify that a little bit, I had a little bit of a conversation today with Bonnie, and Bonnie pointed out that 150 square foot structures do not need a permit, but those structures do need to meet setbacks to be considered a permitted structure. On 9/19/2019, Environmental Services staff provided the property owner with a compliance agreement for the removal or relocation of the accessory structure. On 1/12/2021, ES staff did a site visit to verify that the conditions of the compliance agreement were met and the accessory structure was not removed or relocated. The applicant is asking to keep the existing 96 square foot accessory structure that does not match the exterior color of the residential dwelling and to relocate that structure to a location that is 85 feet from the ordinary high water level of Pelican Lake classified recreational development. And the reason that spot was chosen because there is existing electrical in that location at this time. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Pelican Lake classified recreational development. Pelican is on the list of impaired waters for mercury and fish. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the existing dwelling was certified compliant in 2019. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is approximately 22%. The proposed impervious lot coverage when the project is complete will also be approximately 22% because the structure will just be moved to a different location. And Avon Township, Pelican Lake Association of St. Anna, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. Now, I did receive one email with regards to this. It was basically anonymous. I can't tell who the owner is just from the email address, but they said that in our opinion, we don't care about the color of the sauna or that it is another outbuilding on his property, but are concerned about new buildings too close to the lake to protect the waters. I would think he should have space on one side of the house where it doesn't impact any neighbors. I am hopeful the county will make the best decision for the situation and not set precedents for others to make similar requests. So I shared that with the board. There is no name or address attached to it other than an email address, so you guys can choose to take that as you will. Outside of that, we haven't had any other correspondence with regards to this request.
Okay, thank you. Now, the applicant, if you have some comments you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, there was another drawing there that had the proposed structure in a different spot. That one was my original thought, but Jamie had came out and we did some measuring. That one would have been also closer than the 100-foot mark, and it would have also been too close to the south property line. So this one that is on the screen right now was the best place that Jamie and I thought that the sauna could go, because the property has a slope down to the lake, and that is the first spot farthest away from the lake and 20 feet away from the main dwelling, which I think that is a requirement of the permit to place it. So that's why that red square is the final requested location. As far as the color of it, it was already discussed that it's a natural wood structure, so it's similar to a log house. So that's why the color is what it is. And I know it doesn't necessarily matter right this second, but my overall plan, I've remodeled the downstairs, added a bedroom. Now I've remodeled the entryway to better fit my needs. And then the next step was going to be to reside the house in a color that would be more closer to other. Jamie had done a good job
I believe we've
explaining.
All right, thank you.
Well,
Now, is
I
there
was
any
done.
questions from?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, your audio was cutting in and out a little bit, so I was guessing you were finished. Is there any questions from the board?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, a question for the applicant. You signed a compliance agreement and, that was, you were supposed to be compliant with moving the structure by June 1st of 2020. You signed it and agreed to it. Please comment on why you didn't follow through.
I had multiple contractors come out and look at the project and say they would move it. When Governor Walz did the COVID-19 shutdown of things, they canceled. So on 3 occasions, I had contractors lined up, but they had canceled due to COVID-19 restrictions, they said. And then also, I was going to move it way to the south end, and there's a structure there. So when environmental services came out, the second time, they noticed that there was a second shed on the property, and then my original plan to where I was going to move it wouldn't work. So working with environmental services, I asked if there was anything else that could be done or I could do, and I was then told that I could start down this path and I could start working with Jamie on trying to find a resolution that worked for everybody. Right. So I guess what I'm saying is if I would have moved it, I would have still had to come to the board for a variance.
Okay, and I just have a couple questions, and I think I know the answers to these, but because of the email, that we have responded to that. The email indicated about putting it on one or either side of the house to get it further away from the lake. How would that work as far as property line setbacks and setback from the road? And that can either be answered by the applicant or staff, whoever feels most comfortable.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I can certainly answer that question. As he has it right now in that location, I believe that's the side that he has the most distance between the home and the property line. And as you can see, we don't have the distance we need to be 10 feet from the property line and also 10 feet from the dwelling. That is a requirement as well. And so putting it on either side of the dwelling is not a viable option without a variance either. And, because we talked about that, Brian and I, when we were on site, and I said, you can certainly apply for that variance, but if you're going to apply for a variance to a side property line, that also brings in the need for a survey for the property. And so, that makes it a little bit more challenging for a small structure.
I also talked to the neighbor on the north side there, Robbie and Dottie, and their thought was they would rather it not be there. So I know that obviously they didn't call in on this, but I do believe they probably would have been opposed if we would have left it as is.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we addressed the issues that were brought up in the email that was sent to us. Other comments from board members or questions?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, a question for the applicant. I get the natural wood piece for the spa on the inside. I think that's vitally important. But for the neighborhood, would it not make some sense to put a different exterior on? You said you were going to reside the house and have that structure with the same siding as the house once you have it resided?
I was hoping to match colors better, but a natural log siding for the house, I was not planning to do. I would like to do like a steel siding, a no maintenance siding, I guess, and use colors similar to the structure. If you look at it, I don't know if you can zoom in or not, but the logs are stacked on top of each other, so there's no corner. There's like the logs stick out like this on the corners, and they overlap each other. So to put siding on it, it'd be very I don't know. I guess I don't know how I would do it.
You could always use a solid base stain. They make a blue stain if you were going to keep the house blue.
Yes, you could stain it, and that's what that is. That's it's just oil. It's been oiled.
Okay, additional questions? Okay, hearing no additional questions, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Well, actually, one thing, Madam Chair, Jason Crone, a quick question for the applicant. My concern personally is less with the color as much as it is with moving it a little bit closer to the shoreline. So curious if the applicant would be willing, as part of a condition, to put gutters and drain that into a basin as part of that move, just to mitigate some of the runoff. Is that anything that the applicant would have an issue with?
No, I don't think so. I guess I just needed some more information. I understand gutters, but you said into a basin?
If possible, draining something into a catch basin just to let that water infiltrate subsurface. So there's been some other projects that have done this. In essence, burying a drum with some rocks and stuff in it. Basically, you run your downspout into that, and it allows that water to leach out versus pouring off the roof and running straight into the lake. So relatively simple thing, as long as you're okay if we would put that as part of a condition.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory. Just to follow up to Jason's rock sump, I think is what they're called. And the SWCD had a recommendation about a native plant buffer. And I guess just curious if the applicant had read that recommendation and what their thoughts were on it.
I saw that drawing that was up there. So when you say native plant buffer, you're talking about not the grass that's there right now.
Yeah, that's correct. It's native plants, so it includes wildflowers and other type of native grasses, and that it wouldn't be mowed, so that it helps mitigate the runoff going into the lake. And so I'm just curious if you had a chance to review that recommendation and what your thoughts are on it.
So you're asking if I would plant on the current beach, because that's within those green areas there? So is that what you're asking, if I would plant on the beach or get rid of the beach?
I'm clearly not the soil and water expert here, but Mr. Berg, who put this recommendation together, I believe is indicating that in those green areas, you would put a native plant buffer, would be an unmown area. You would leave a 25-foot wide access to the lake, and the buffer areas would extend the rest of the shoreline other than that 25-foot access, and it would extend 25 feet landward from the ordinary high water level. So that's what he's recommending. And again, I want to get a sense of your thoughts, regarding that water mitigation effort.
If if we're talking about myself losing beach area by planting native plants on it, I would rather get rid of the sauna. That's why I bought the property, because of the beach and having children.
Okay, thank you for your response.
And my thoughts in regard to that is, you know, if we were looking at a large accessory structure, but we're talking less than 100 square feet here, and we always need to show some kind of nexus between what's being asked for and what would be conditioned. And I would struggle with finding a nexus between the buffers and this building. You know, there might be runoff from the rest of the house, but it would need to be from this building. I would kind of wonder, especially if he's willing to put in the, you know, the gutters with the sump barrel.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I don't disagree with you. I was just trying to get a sense of whether the applicant had reviewed the SWCD recommendation. I would agree with your comments and Jason's comments regarding guttering and a rock sump.
Other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, we're ready to close the public hearing.
Mike Haynes, so move.
We have a motion to close, a second.
Dave Gamrod, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Anyone opposed to closing the public hearing? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. And we will go to findings of fact. And again, these will be the after the fact findings of fact. Number 1, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located?
Madam Chair, Mike Haynes, it's R1 zone district and accessory structures are allowed in R1 zone area.
All right, we have a yes for number 1. Anyone opposed to that? We'll mark it as a unanimous yes. Number 2, is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe that the intent of the controls are of having similar looking exteriors of buildings, residentials, and the accessory buildings is to make the neighborhood look nice and to not have a real mishmash or patchwork of things going on in one property. And I believe in this case, the uniqueness of the accessory building's exterior, I don't believe that it takes away from what the property looks like. I think it actually does look nice. It is interesting. And I did see a neighbor building did have similar wood siding on one part of the building as well. So I think it is in harmony.
All right, we have a yes for number 2. Anyone disagree with that? Okay, hearing none, I will mark that as unanimous, yes. Number 3, is the variance request consistent with the comprehensive plan?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Madam Chair, Jason Crone. Dave, if you're going to chime in, you can as well. Otherwise, I was going to mention under the nature goals, water resource policies, recognizing the relationship between land use and water quality, and then continue to support water quality improvements through land use plans and regulations. By adding a condition dealing just with the gutters, I think that's one of the ways to address that under the comprehensive plan.
All right, we have a yes for number 3. Anyone disagree with yes for 3?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I also want to add in, I am a yes, but under Lakeshore Living Policies number 6, to expand mitigation requirements for projects requesting to vary from lake setbacks to preserve the riparian environment and reduce erosion to enhance water quality.
And number 4. Does anyone disagree with yes for number 3? Okay, hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 4. Is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the official controls?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, I do believe it's reasonable to have an accessory sauna structure in a residential zoning district.
All right, we have a yes for number 4. Anyone disagree with that? Okay, hearing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowners due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad, I think it is unique to the property because there's no space on either side of the house that would be able to take this structure, so it either has to be out by the road or behind the house, and I think that they picked the best way of compromise.
All right, we have a yes for number 5. Does anyone disagree with that? All right, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 6, will the variance maintain the essential character of the locality?
Madam Chair McCain, I don't believe the character of the neighborhood will change because of a sauna in the backyard.
All right, we have a yes for number 6. Anyone disagree? All right, and number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. I don't believe that economics were part of this conversation. It's more just placement of a building rather than any economic changes. We have a yes for number 7. Does anyone disagree with that? Hearing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. We are now ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I would make a motion that we approve the applicant's request for a variance to leave as constructed a residential accessory structure with an exterior color that doesn't match the exterior color of the principal residence building, and to locate that structure less than 100 feet from the ordinary high water level of the lake, with the condition that the applicant put gutters on the sauna structure that drain into a rock sump with the appropriate infiltration from the rock sump.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Madam Chair, I'm just wondering if we could add to Dennis's motion that if the client changes the color of the house, that the house and the sauna would at some point match, but could leave it existing until that happens.
All right, I'm going to check with staff. Can we do a condition that's dependent on something in the future? Staff has indicated that that would be something very difficult for the county to follow up on because they would have to be doing constant checks as far as when the house was repainted or changed. So their recommendation would be not to include that, but
all right, I will second Dennis's motion then as stated.
All right. So we have a motion and a second to for approval with the conditions that gutters and the rock sump would be added. We will do roll call. Jill?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. So motion carries. If you have additional questions about your application, or I believe if you had questions about that, the gutters and the rock sump, they probably could answer questions for you. about that. And please contact them during regular business hours via telephone with any questions you might have. Thanks for being with us this evening.
Yep, thank you all.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, item number 5. Board members, it is item number 4 in your packet. Number 5 is to consider requests from Robert and Lorena Weber, Forest Hills, New York, and Gruby Revocable Trust, Trevor and Bridget Gruby of Issaquah, Washington, from sections 5.1.2C2 and 10.2.11A1A of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to leave as currently reconstructed a legal non-conforming residential dwelling less than 200 feet from the OHWL of Piers Lake, classified as natural environment. The said ordinance requires additions or alterations to a non-conforming structure on a lake classified as natural environment to be set back 200 feet from the OHWL. The affected property is Lot 13, Block 1 of Piers Lake Estates, Section 5, Track 125, Section 122 North, Range 31 West, Eden Lake Township, and the property address is 19408 Piers Lake Road, Paynesville, Minnesota. And is the applicant with us?
Yes.
All right, we'll be back to you in just a moment. All right, we will do roll call as to who was able to visit the site. Dennis?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes, I was.
And I also visited the site. Then if we'll go to staff to give us an overview of the application.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The applicants currently own Lot 13, Block 1 of Piers Lake Estates. Piers Lake Estates was platted in 1969. The tract contains a total lot area of 29,173 square feet on Piers Lake. The property is in an R1 zoning district. The applicants purchased the property in 2020. The non-conforming tract of record had an existing residential dwelling and deck. The residential dwelling was a legal non-conforming structure as it did not meet the required structural setback to the ordinary high water level of Piers Lake, classified natural environment. Also, a building line could not be established as the lot adjacent is vacant. In June of 2020, the applicants applied for and were granted a variance to change the roof line to a steeper pitch and add a bonus room and change the direction of the peak. In July 2020, a construction site permit was issued for the project. During construction, the applicant's contractor determined that there were issues with the existing foundation and walls. To remedy the situation, the existing walls were removed, the foundation was reinforced, and new walls were constructed. Upon reinspection by environmental services staff, it was determined the scope of work completed had exceeded that allowed by the variance that was granted. The applicants are back seeking a variance for the reconstruction of the entire dwelling. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Piers Lake, classified natural environment. Piers is not on the list of impaired waters. The subsurface sewage treatment system on the property is compliant per compliance inspection completed on March 17, 2020, and is sized for 2 bedrooms and consists of 2 1,500-gallon holding tanks. The current impervious lot coverage is approximately 14.8%. Eden Lake Township, North Fork of the Crow River Watershed District, Piers Lake Association, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request, and we have not received any other correspondence with regards to this request. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that input. And the applicant, if you'd like to share with us your thoughts.
Yeah, certainly, and Jamie did a good job of describing describing the item. And basically, as we got into the construction, the contractor had determined that the existing walls would either need to be shored up, reinforced, etc., and determined that along with reinforcing of the foundation, that it would be better from a structural perspective and a safety perspective to put new walls. So from our perspective, we wanted to make sure that we kept to the existing footprint, kept to the existing plans that we had submitted last year. So thank you for your consideration for this.
All right, thank you. Now, if board members have questions for staff or the applicant.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, a question for staff. In June 2020, when the previous variance was approved, were there any conditions to that variance?
They're checking right now.
Let me check on that. That's a good question, Dennis. Nope, there were no conditions. And at that time, we did not do the Soil and Water Conservation District recommendation, like we do right now. And so that is why Soil and Water did go out there this time and offer some possible options for you guys to look at.
And so then a follow-up question for the applicant. I assume that you received the SWCD recommendations. And what are your thoughts about putting gutters on the house that would empty into a tile that would empty into the wetland?
Yeah, so we did receive it, took a look at it. In terms of the swell between the septic and the welding wetland, I don't see an issue with that. Seems pretty straightforward. In terms of gutters on the house, not a problem with that. I had a question. I haven't asked a question yet on the tiling of that. Given that it's a seasonal house, what I wouldn't want is, and I'm not saying we wouldn't do it or would do it, but just a question of during the winter time, does that freeze? Like, do you get frost in there and then it freezes, and then you get some melt and then it freezes? And I wasn't quite sure why we'd tile directly to that outlet versus having it try to naturally go into the ground. But either way, it's just a consideration. It's not really an issue for us.
Sure. I appreciate your feedback. And unless staff has comments, I don't know that we would know directly the answer because Mr. Berg is not on this call.
And
Yeah.
I would guess that if it, between putting it a tile and running it, directing it to a wetland, rather than letting it run, I think, we're looking for erosion control, and running across the surface of the ground, you would probably have more erosion than tiling it to a specific location. But I am not an expert in that area, so I am simply guessing what the thoughts behind that would be.
Madam Chair, did the applicant understand it's like a 4-inch round PVC tube underground with holes in it, not actual tiles? So it probably wouldn't freeze because it has holes in it, and it'd be out of sight.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess as long as all of a sudden it doesn't freeze, and it's like a water pipe that freezes in the winter and then it breaks, and then I just wasn't sure about future maintenance on tiles that are underground. But if it's something that people do and it works perfectly well,
It's a 4-inch PVC pipe that's full of holes, and the water would dissipate out of that, so there's not really any standing water in it.
Okay. It sounds reasonable.
Thank you, Mike, for that explanation. Other questions or comments from board members? Hearing none, are we ready to close the public hearing?
So moved, Dennis Gregory.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second, Dave Gamrod.
Second, Jason Crone. Go ahead,
Okay,
Dave.
all right, we have a second. Is there anyone opposed to closing the public hearing? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. We will be doing the findings of fact. This is on the after the fact form. To leave as currently reconstructed a legal non-conforming residential dwelling less than 200 feet from the OHWL of Piers Lake classified as natural environment. Number 1, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located? Yes or no?
Dave Gamrod, yes, it's in a R1 district and houses are an allowed use.
All right, we have a yes for number 1. Does anyone disagree with that? Mark that as unanimous, yes. Number 2, is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I believe it is in harmony. The applicant took care to keep the same footprint for the building and is willing to provide some water mitigation to protect the water quality.
All right, thank you. We have a yes for 2. Does anyone disagree with that? All right, number 3, or we'll mark that as unanimous, yes. Number 3, is the variance request consistent with a comprehensive plan?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, I think it is. And in this case, under the Lakeshore Living policies, encouraging implementation of innovative stormwater management practices into shoreland projects such as rain gardens, permeable surfaces, and vegetative buffers. In this case, it's the permeable surfaces and tiles.
All right, we have a yes for number 3. Does anyone disagree with that? Okay, hearing none, mark that as unanimous, yes. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by official controls.
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, I believe it's reasonable. As they got into construction and realized the existing structure wasn't structurally sound, they made it better. And now they're willing to do some water mitigation as a part of that as well.
All right, we have a yes for number 4. Does anyone disagree? Mark that as unanimous, yes. Number 5, is the plight of the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, I think it's unique to the situation they encountered when they started construction. So,
all right, we have a yes for number 5. Does anyone disagree? Hearing none, we'll mark that as unanimous, yes. Number 6, will the variance maintain the essential character of the locality?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, this project will not impact the essential character of the locality.
We have a yes for number 6. Anyone disagree? And number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic concerns, yes or no?
Economics weren't discussed, Mike Kane.
All right, we have a yes for number 7. Anyone disagree? All right, we are ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I'd make a motion that we approve the applicant's request for a variance to leave as currently reconstructed a legal non-conforming residential dwelling that is less than 200 feet from the ordinary high water level of Piers Lake, with the condition that they implement the recommendation as specified by the Stearns County SWCD, which includes maintaining existing buffers, putting a gutter on the roof lines of the structure that empties into a tile, that empties into a wetland, and then grading a swell between the new structure and the septic tank. But the condition is the entire recommendation by SWCD.
And I'll second that. Jacob?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Jacob, Just a second. All right, I will do roll call on the rest. Jill?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And I am also a yes.
And Micah, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss you, Mike? Sorry about that. And Micah, yes. Motion passes. So if you have any additional questions about your application, you can check with environmental staff via telephone during regular business hours. And thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, our last item on the agenda for this evening is item number 6. It's number 5 in your packet. Is to consider a request for Jody and Linda Gruningsman? Ginningsman, okay, thank you. Ginningsman for Cold Spring, Minnesota with section 6.2.1A, 9.9.9A3, and 10.2.11A1B of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct a detached residential accessory structure that exceeds the maximum accessory building area, the maximum sidewall height on a lot between 1 and 1.99 acres in lot area, does not meet the required structural setback to County Road 49, classified as a minor collector, and to the OHWL of Sauk River, classified urban along this segment. Also to construct an addition to the existing residential dwelling that does not meet the required structural setback to County Road 49, and to construct a deck that does not meet the required structural setback to the OHWL of Sauk River. The said ordinance allows for a maximum accessory building area of 1,500 square feet with 12-foot sidewall heights on a lot of 1.1 to 1.99 acres and requires a 50-foot structural setback to the right-of-way of a road of a minor classified collector and a 100-foot structural setback to the OHWL of a river classified as urban. The affected property is 1 acre, a part of the southwest quarter of Section 22, Track 123 North, Range 30 West of Wakefield Township, and the property address is 16155 County Road 49, Cold Spring, Minnesota. All right, if we can do a roll call as to who was able to visit the site. Dennis?
Yes, and this was on the agenda back sometime earlier in 2020. And at that time, I did visit the site and talked with both Jody and Linda, who provided basically what's in our packet, what the project entailed.
All right, thank you. Jill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jake?
Yep.
Jason?
Yes.
And I also visited the site. And if board members could just keep one thing in mind while they're making discussions, because there are 3 distinct items being asked for, we will have the option to do findings as one finding, or maybe combining 2 and having a 3rd one on a separate finding, or having all 3 on separate findings. And we can discuss what we're going to do with that when we get to closing the public hearing. But I think it's good to keep that in the back of your mind as far as what direction you think would be best. Okay, if staff could give us an overview of this application, please.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Sorry, my mic shut off there. I'm going to kind of go over the requests separately here so you kind of have an idea. Request number 1 is to construct a 60-foot by 40-foot, 2,400 square foot residential accessory structure with a 14-foot sidewall height and a 20-foot overall building height. The structure will be located 33 feet from the right-of-way of County Road 49 and 69.2 feet from the ordinary high water level of the Sauk River. Request 2 is to construct a 396 square foot residential dwelling addition that will be located 1.9 feet from the right-of-way of County Road 49. And the third request is to construct a 584 square foot deck located 66.2 feet from the ordinary high water level of the Sauk River. The applicants currently own a meets and bounds tract that is 55,952 square feet, approximately 1.2 acres in lot area based on the survey provided by the applicants. The property is in the R1 zoning district. The applicants purchased the property in 2020. There is an existing 2,285 square foot residential dwelling with attached garage that was allowed by variance, permitted, and constructed in 1999. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the dwelling consists of a septic tank and drain field system that was permitted and installed in 1999. The system was certified compliant in 2020. I want to pull my stuff down here a little bit. Let me go down. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of the Sauk River, classified urban along this segment. The Sauk River is on the list of impaired waters along this segment for nutrients and mercury in fish. The subsurface sewage treatment system was certified compliant in 2020. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is 9.2%. The proposed impervious lot coverage when the project is complete will be approximately 14.4%. An alternative to a portion of this request is to construct a residential accessory structure that will not exceed the cumulative maximum accessory building area total of 1,500 square feet with a maximum sidewall height of 12 feet and a maximum building height of 20 feet. Wakefield Township, Sauk River Watershed District, Sauk River Chain of Lakes Association, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. And when we contacted County Highway with regards to this request, they had no comments. That is all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Now if the applicant can share with us their thoughts.
Sure. My wife Linda's here with me. I believe Kelly Springer is also present. What we're looking to do is to build the shed in the same area where that smaller shed is that you saw, and we will move that shed out of the area so the larger shed will basically take that same footprint in that area. It'll match the house in color, roof and siding. It won't be stucco, but it'll be same color. It'll most likely be corrugated steel, but it'll match aesthetically with what's there. The doors will match the house. And as far as the request for the size, right now the attached 2-car garage, we run a home-based business and we have to store our marketing products in climate controlled. So we have them in the house right now, and we don't have room to park the cars, anything in the garage right now. So by putting up this larger shed, it allows us to put the vehicles in the garage, not having things parked out in the yard, that type of situation. And that's why we went larger with the boat and pontoon, just the normal items that go along with the lake property, to be able to house them in there because we're using the home for the storage of the business. One of the other things on the deck, there is no deck on the house right now. There is a patio, paver patio on the lowest level. The deck that we're proposing will be the same footprint as that paver patio. It won't be any larger. It won't, we can't think of anything that it would cause as far as an issue. We had Nick come out from Soil and Water. We want to do some landscaping projects also that we've already talked with him. And one of the things that's currently on the property that you saw, there's an existing boat ramp with retaining wall blocks that are there. And one of the things that we would like to offer up in order to get the deck approved is we would be willing to remove that boat ramp from the property. That it would have, like Nick had said, it would eliminate runoff. It reduces the impervious area. We were just throwing that out there as an option of one of the things that we would be willing to do to help out in order to get the deck approved. Similar situation with the addition on the house. That is for a third stall, basically to park a vehicle in. And if the shed, the oversized shed is approved, we would be willing that we probably wouldn't need that garage at that point if the shed is approved in the larger size.
This is Kelly Springer, and I just have a question for you, Jamie. You have indicated that the proposed addition of the house and the shed are within the setback area from County Road 49, and I would argue that's not correct anymore. This area, when we worked with Jody Tyke, we found out that there's the new where County Road 49 is, and that's shown on the survey, and then there was an old road right-of-way that goes northern and then along that kind of bold line there where you had your highlighted areas. And we worked with Jody in the highway department, and that old right-of-way has been vacated. I can give you the recording number for that document. It is Torrens, so T43716. So actually the right-of-way is now as shown as the new County Road 49. So therefore both of these things would be outside the 50-foot setback for that issue. So we kind of resolved that as a part of this process, just to put that out there for the board to consider.
Madam Chair, members of the board, when we had conversations about setbacks and the looking for highways comment, I guess I'm not saying that what Kelly said is wrong, but it was our understanding that all of that area was considered right-of-way that is not their property right now. So the 1.9 feet to the property line is actually to the right-of-way according to County Highway and according to Jody when we talked with her for the addition to the home. Again, I don't know that it matters. It's 1.9 to their property line, regardless of whether it's County Highway. And maybe that's why County Highway decided they have no comment on this, is because there's plenty of room there between, you know, the proposed addition and wherever that right-of-way happens to be in there.
All right, thank you both for your comments. Applicant, if you or their representative, do you have any additional items to
add to Kelly's comments? We've worked hand in hand with the Highway Department, Xcel Energy, Midco, anyone that has utilities on the property, we've worked with. We've actually moved the power pole and power line at our own expense into the current right-of-way. You'll hear these guys reference the old right-of-way from when County 49 was moved. How many ever years ago, they never vacated and they didn't move the power line. We've essentially moved the utilities to where they need to be now at our own expense to put them in the current right-of-way for 49.
I think we would also highlight as well, and I have it in the proposed findings that we had submitted for you, is that the Genningsmans offered to remove the boat ramp. We spoke with Nick Newman over at Stearns County Environmental, and he was pretty jazzed by that because it will greatly reduce runoff into the Sauk River, which of course, as you stated, is a threatened waterway, because right now it's kind of just a ramp right into the water, promoting that runoff, with that being replaced with grasses on the upper end closer to the house, and then some native plants, water garden, rain gardens and things like that closer towards the water. I think that will really be a benefit in reducing any runoff into the area, erosion, etc. And we did quote some conversations we had with him in our submitted material.
Okay, thank you. Do we have, anything additional from the applicant or representative at this time?
I think that was everything we wanted to touch on.
Okay, then we will go to that board members that have questions of the applicant or of staff.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, a question for the applicant. Did you consider building a pole shed, I think it is, that met the requirements of 1,500 feet, that still could store the vehicles? What would be the downside to having a shed of that size versus 2,400 feet?
Just the physical size, 2 vehicles, a pickup and an SUV, pontoon, the boat, the fish house, the lawn care products and tools. That was kind of the reasoning for putting that third stall onto the house, is that if we weren't going to get that larger shed, then we needed the third stall on the house in order to house everything, so we don't have it outside, basically.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions?
Madam Chair, Jason, question for the applicants. Hey, in your working with Nick Newman, have you guys discussed any specifics about a vegetative buffer? That's a pretty steep hill coming off of that. Is that something you are open to doing in addition to pulling out the ramp?
Yes, Nick really didn't draw up any plans for the shed or the addition to the house. He was mainly out for the landscaping, the boat ramp right on the lakeside. But in my mind, when we build the shed, it'll be guttered and downspout. I heard some of the earlier conversations about catch basins and such. Whichever design comes up best to keep the water and slow the flow down is what we're going to do. So if the vegetation is something that we need to slow it down, not a problem on our end. I will note that the entire back corner of the shed is very heavily wooded. It's very dense. If you guys were out there, you saw that. So there's all kinds of vegetation in there, and we don't have a problem adding more to slowing any additional runoff down.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was actually getting up the lake shore itself for the deck portion of it, which again, it's with all of these projects, the more we can restore some of the native stuff along the shorelines, we always try to do that and encourage it. So I was referring more to the shoreline portion of it versus the shed, but I appreciate your response on that side of it as well.
Sure. On the shoreline side of it, if that ramp comes out, most likely we will be putting some sort of vegetation in its place. I mean, it'll be seeded, but also some sort of taller grasses, native grasses to slow it down before it hits the river.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have one question, and I don't know if it's the applicant or their representative that wants to answer this. But on the memorandum that they sent out to us, I believe on page 2, number 3, in the second paragraph, it states, the pole shed that they are requesting will allow them to use their property in the ways they wish and allow for property to be adapted to other uses than what it may have been built for. I guess that statement there is a little confusing to me as far as other uses. Are you talking about running a business out of there, or what type of other uses were you thinking of?
I'm just catching up on this. Kelly, are you more familiar with that?
I think we were just referring to the size. You know, if you look at the size of the house, kind of a smallish garage, the house by itself is not designed to have all the toys you normally have with a riverside property, you know, various landscaping. I mean, it doesn't appear that it was originally designed to hold the size of multiple vehicles, a pontoon, a boat, whatever, that, you know, obviously if you look at the garage, it's not designed for that. So it's allowing for expanded recreational uses. So I apologize for the confusion there.
Okay, so expanded recreational uses, not commercial uses, or?
No, there will be no commercial uses in the shed at all.
All right, thank you. Other questions from staff or from board members? Okay, if we don't, then I believe we're probably ready for to close the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion. I have a motion from Dennis to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Dave Gamrad, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Does anyone disagree with closing the public hearing? All right, the public hearing is now closed. Board members, we have options. There are 3 distinct requests here as part of this application. We can either do them, some of them combined, all of them combined, all of them separate. What would be the wishes of the board of how we would do findings?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I think they're all 3 separate findings in my opinion.
All right, do we have anyone that concurs with that?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I'd be fine with that. I'd also be fine with combining request number 2 and 3 together.
Madam Chair, I'm with Dennis. The house addition and the deck would be 1 and the pole shed would be a second.
I agree with Dennis.
Okay, and I would also agree with combining the deck and the house addition and having the pole shed separate. Any other comments?
Madam Chair, if I may, if we do just 2 findings, it might be good to do request 2 and 3 first, and then request 1 second.
And request 1, you're talking about the shed, right?
Shed, yes.
All right. It sounds like the majority was okay with us doing request 2 and 3 together, which would be the addition to the residential dwelling and the deck. So we will proceed in that manner. Just give me a second here. I have a stack of findings in front of me and I want to make sure I'm using the right one. All right.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad?
Yes.
Would there be a sequence of this that applicants would prefer? You know, if we do one or the other first?
Applicants, if you'd like to comment on that?
That would depend on the findings for the other 2 requests. Like we had said, we're open on the additional garage if we can get that larger shed. Otherwise, we're going to be very limited in storage capacities. That I don't want vehicles and such sitting out in the yard and causing problems and upsetting neighbors. I don't like it myself.
Well, I think we can do it either way. If it would be approved that we, if the addition was approved and the shed as requested would be approved, you could choose to do both or not do the addition onto the house. I'm not sure from my thoughts, I'm not sure that it will make a difference to board members which order they go in. I have a feeling that they'll probably vote the same way regardless of which direction we do it.
Yeah,
so
then it wouldn't matter for us.
All right.
Whichever order you want.
All right, then let's go ahead with doing the accessory structure to the house and the deck first. That's what this first findings of fact are for, just the residential dwelling accessory structure, or addition, excuse me, not accessory structure, the addition and the deck. The proposed is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Madam Chair, it's R1 zoned and additions and decks are allowed in an R1 zoned area.
All right, we have a yes for number 1. Does anyone disagree with yes for number 1? Hearing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any related ordinance, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe that with the official controls, one of the reasons why we want to limit those kind of decks are to limit adding extra impervious area, and it will just be over existing impervious patio. So I believe that is in harmony with the existing controls. And with regards to the addition, it's to the right of way, which has been vacated, and there's been no concerned comment brought up by the county engineer. So I believe that is also within harmony of the general purpose of the controls.
All right, we have a yes for number 2. Does anyone disagree with that? Okay, hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous, yes. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, Lakeshore Living Policies, several of them probably, but number 2 is the one I would point out, to encourage shoreline protection restoration methods. As Member DeLong indicated, the deck is going over a patio area, not changing, but the applicants are willing to remove the boat ramp and restore that area with vegetation. And so I think it is meeting the comprehensive plan.
All right, we have a yes for number 3. Does anyone disagree with that? We'll mark that as unanimous, yes. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, I believe it's reasonable to have a deck on the lakeshore side of the property and in addition to a garage to house the vehicles.
All right, we have a yes for number 4. Does anyone disagree? I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, the people purchase a home in the existing condition. They're just trying to improve their living conditions at that particular location.
All right, we have a yes for number 5. Does anyone disagree with that? And I will mark that as unanimous yes. Number 6, the variance if granted maintains the essential character of the locality.
Madam Chair, Dennis, go ahead.
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, adding a deck to a home on the lake or on the riverfront, that seems quite common with most folks, and just adding an extra stall garage to the home will not change the essential character of the locality.
All right, we have a yes for number 6. Does anyone disagree with yes? We'll mark that as unanimous, yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic concerns, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone.
Okay, Jason?
I was just going to mention that economics were not discussed. It's more functionality than economics.
All right, we have a yes for number 7. Does anyone disagree? Okay, hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. And we are ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I would make a motion that we approve the applicant's request to construct a 396 square foot residential dwelling addition that will be located 1.9 feet from the right of way of County Road 49, as we understand it, and to construct a 584 square foot deck located 66.2 feet from the ordinary high water level of Sauk River, with the condition that the applicants remove the existing boat ramp and replace it with a vegetative buffer.
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
All right, that was Mike, seconded.
Yes.
Then we will do a roll call on the vote. Jill?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. So your motion carries in regard to the addition onto the residential dwelling and construction of the deck. Now we will do findings in regard to the shed to construct, and let's see, find the right one. To construct a detached residential accessory structure that does not meet the required structural setback to County Road 49, classified as a minor collector, and to the OHWL of Sauk River, classified urban along this segment. And I believe that application should also state that it exceeds the size, the maximum size requirement. There should be one that has that written on it. Okay. I have like 6 or 7 different options here, so I'm making sure I find the right option. All right. But as long as I've put that into the record. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I will reread this. To construct a detached residential accessory structure that exceeds the maximum accessory building area, the maximum sidewall height on a lot between 1 and 1.99 acres in lot area, does not meet the required structural setback to County Road 49, classified as a minor collector, and to the OHWL of the Sauk River, classified urban along this segment. All right, the proposal, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, an accessory building is allowed in R1.
All right, we have a yes for number 1. Does anyone disagree with yes for number 1? Hearing none, we will mark that as unanimous yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any related ordinances, yes or no?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Jill.
Jill DeLong.
Go ahead, Jill.
I'm going to say no. The official controls for the OHWL is to limit the amount of impervious surface close to a waterway, and the official controls are also to limit the size of the building, and this is much larger than that. I do not believe that this is in harmony with the official controls.
All right, do we have any additional comments for number 2? Does we have a no for number 2? Does anyone disagree with no for number 2? All right. Here, am I hearing any?
Yeah,
Okay.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamble.
Yes, go ahead, Dave.
I would be in favor of some leeway here. The size of the proposed building is the same size as a 4.5 to 9.5 acre thing. If we be closer to something in between there, I would be more favorable in looking at it. But I think that the placement of the building is in a wooded area that would be not seen from the highway and not seen from the river either. So
are you stating then that you are a yes for number 2?
I would no, I would if it was 2,000 feet or something or 1,800 feet, I would say I'd be much more inclined to vote for it. But 2,400 feet is quite a bit over.
All right, so you are concurring that as a no with Jill?
Yeah, I will be a no.
All right, so we have 2 no's for number 2. Does anyone disagree with no for number 2? All right, then we would have a unanimous no for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I think it is not I believe it is not consistent with the comprehensive plan under Lakeshore Living policies of number 3 to discourage the alteration of natural shorelands and the creation of impervious surface in nearshore areas.
Okay, thank you. So do we have any additional comments for number 3? Does anyone disagree with no for number 3? All right, hearing none, we will mark that as unanimous no. Did I hear?
Madam Chair, I would say a yes. Under the accessory dwelling unit policies supporting a mix of housing, that there's appropriate for each zoning district. You could make an argument for that. You could make an argument for that one. In this case, again, back to kind of Dave's comments, due to the size, it's a tougher one, considering the zoning district it's in, but you can make an argument.
All right, so number 3, we have 1 no and 1 yes. So therefore, we'll do a roll call on this item. Dennis?
Just an added comment. It's 1.2 acres, so it's not even close to the next level up. And so I am a no.
Okay, Mike?
No.
Dave?
I'd be a no at this size.
Hey, Jake?
No.
And I'm also a no. So we have 6 no's and 1 yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner.
Madam Chair, I believe it is reasonable to want some additional storage at a lake place to house your lake shore needs, boats and pontoons and so forth.
Okay, and that was Mike? So Mike is saying yes?
Yes.
Okay. I am going to say no for the reason that yes, we store all of our extras in a shed, but this I think is beyond what most people in that size of a lot have. And I guess it's not the county's responsibility to make allowances for people who have a number of items. You know, if you have, the more items you have doesn't mean the larger building will give you. So we have 1 yes and 1 no for number 4.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrod.
Yes.
My comment would be to the, if they were just building a garage, they would be given so many square feet for a double garage or whatever. And if you added a portion to that for storage of other things, you might end up with a little over what the allowed was. It wouldn't be too bad, but we were talking just too much at this point.
All right, so then you are a no here as well as,
yeah.
Am I reading you correctly?
That's correct.
All right, so right now we have 1 yes and 2 no's for number 4. So I'll do a roll call on the remainder. Dennis?
I think the use as a storage shed is a reasonable use, but I think the size is not reasonable, and so I would be a no.
Jill?
No.
Jake?
No.
And Jason?
I'll say yes on that.
All right, so on number 4, we have 2 yeses and 5 no's. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, in this case, I'm going to actually say that it is more so created by the owner and their needs. It's not necessarily the property. The property is what it is, and it was purchased that way. This need is more due to the owner's needs.
All right, so we have a no for number 5. Does anyone disagree with no for number 5? Okay, hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous no. Number 6, the variance if granted maintains the essential character of the locality.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I understand the applicants are thinking about a berm and trying to hide it in the woods somewhat, and I appreciate that. But building a large shed, when large sheds of this nature are not allowed, does in fact change the essential character of the locality.
So you will be a no. Any other comments or questions about number 6 from members? We have 1 no. Does anyone disagree with no for number 6? I'll mark that as unanimous no. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Madam Chair, economics weren't discussed. Again, I think it's the functionality the applicants are looking for more than any economic situation.
All right, we have 1 yes for number 7. Does anyone disagree with yes for number 7? Okay, hearing none, I will mark that as unanimous, yes. We are now ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I would make a motion that we deny the applicant's request to construct a 2,400 square foot residential accessory structure with a 14-foot sidewall and 20-foot overall building height that would be located 33 feet from the right-of-way of County Road 49 and 69.2 feet from the ordinary high water level of the Sauk River.
And before, 1 more.
Madam Chair, members of the board, there is one other findings that I think would be helpful in this scenario. If the property owners would like to construct a 1,500 square foot structure that meets the requirements, they're still going to need a setback variance to the lake, to the water, and to the road. And so I propose that you do that one right now as well, because that would avoid them having to come back to the board again after. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. So we would do another set of findings.
Just for the setback to the road and to the river. Does that make sense?
All right. Yes.
For an accessory structure, of 1,500 square feet. Now, I don't know if that's something that the applicants are interested in. Maybe you want to ask for their opinion on that, but I would recommend doing that so they don't have to come back to the board again.
Okay. And I believe we probably would not need to do, we would need to do a second set of findings so that we would not be in the
right,
negative.
Because you just denied that request for that structure.
We have to, But we would need a second set of findings
Right.
so that we would
Right.
have.
I apologize for jumping
questions
the
and-
gun there. I just didn't want you to close, let them go before this was answered. So
Right.
I apologize.
No, I appreciate you interjecting because I hadn't thought of that, and I'm glad you interjected that. So right now, we're going to vote on what's right in front of us as far as the size of the building, the setback, all of it. And then we'll do a second set of findings just on the setback.
Madam Chair, just a point of order. I don't think the motion was ever seconded.
Right. So we have a motion to deny for the variance request as read for the total request for the shed. Do we have a second?
Dave Gamrod, I'll second that.
All right, we have a second. And I will do roll call on the vote. Jill?
Yes.
And this is a vote to deny. Mike
Yes.
and Jake
Yes.
and Jason.
Yes.
And I am also a yes. Now we will do findings. Okay, if we could ask the applicant if that is something they are interested in at this time, for us to do a vote on whether you would be able to build a building that fits the size requirements, but would be within the reduced setback from the road and the OHWL. Is
Yes,
that
we would.
something you would like us to do?
Yes. One other thing, a few of the board members had mentioned different sizes of sheds, just not 40 by 60. Is there a magic number above the 1,500 that would be agreeable?
Well, we can discuss that. I'm wondering though if there's a possibility that those two items could get different results. Maybe if it's all right with the board, what I'd like to do is maybe first do findings for those setbacks. Let's do that first, and then we can do findings for a different size building. Is that acceptable, staff, to do that at this time or not? Okay. All right, so staff is saying that would be a decision that the board can make, whether they'd be open to doing that or not.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Jill?
Jill DeLong. So the concern that I have, in addition to the size of the shed, is the placement. When I looked behind the existing shed that's there, it looked like a bit of a ravine. It's very steep. It probably handles a lot of drainage. I don't know that I feel comfortable approving any shed in that location without some kind of engineered stormwater plan or other look there for the runoff, just because of the steepness of the terrain.
Okay. So what is the wishes of the board then? Would they like to entertain some additional findings for the setbacks and the additional findings for a reduced size shed?
I do have a comment regarding the corner, the steepness.
Go ahead, Jody.
Jamie had, I think it was called a bluff survey where he had completed that. Obviously, it does fall off. There will be a retaining wall built and proper drainage for that, whatever the permits require, the best construction practices. We're not going to build it and then have it slide down into the river. So it would be landscaped and drain tiled, whatever the contractors would deem necessary to make that area work. We don't have that plan because we didn't know what size shed we were going to get approved, and that would move it back and forth. 10 feet forward in that corner makes a huge difference in the elevation drop. So the smaller shed would tighten it up and bring it out of that steeper area. quite a bit.
Madam Chair, I'd like to suggest that maybe we don't do a separate findings, because if it's going to be a smaller shed, possibly, then the location might be different. It sounds like there's some details that could be hammered out that might be better taken off of our plates tonight and let them figure that out first.
The shed would be in the same location. It would just be a matter of the size, if it would shift 10 feet forward or back.
Madam Chair, taking off of Member DeLong's comment, maybe there's a couple of different choices here. One is to, I don't know if we can continue it so that they don't have to go back through the entire process. I personally would not want to get into, quote, a negotiation on shed size this evening. I think there's multiple opinions on that. I would be personally okay with doing a findings of fact on the setbacks, but do want to make sure that all members are comfortable with with that process.
All right. I've kind of gotten the nod from staff that it would be acceptable if we would wish to continue this so that we can allow for to do findings on another variation of this without them having to pay the fees and for a second time. But first I'll ask board members, how many of you would be, is there anyone that would be opposed to us doing findings on the setback from the road and the lake, and the river?
Madam Chair, Mike Kane. If the shed gets smaller, the setbacks, we don't know the exact setback from the road or the lake because we don't know what size it is. So until we know the size, we won't know the setback we need from the road and the lake or the river. So I think if we're going to continue this with a different size shed, they need to propose that, and then we'll consider those two options as at that time.
All right. And I would agree with Mike on that if we continued it, we would continue it with both the setbacks and the size of the shed.
And one question, if we went with the 30 by 50, is there a way to get that approved tonight? Because we've already waited 8 months and prices continue to skyrocket.
Well, I think, the size of it does, the location really is dependent on the size. And what we would do is setbacks, I believe, would be affected by the size. Not knowing all that information, I would have a feeling that board members would not be necessarily inclined to approve something they didn't have all the information for.
But if the shed's going in the same location, just 10 feet shorter, 10 feet narrower, the setbacks would be less, correct?
That is correct.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I was going in that same direction, and that is we could, again, provided that all the board members are comfortable, we could approve a variance of not closer than 33 feet or 69.2 feet. And then, as long as they met those requirements, they could place that shed in that same location.
We would be perfectly fine with that.
All right, and then if we're looking at the setbacks, then would you be interested in setting a size at this time?
Are you asking me that question?
Yes, let's say a 1,500, would that be something that you would wish us to pursue at this time?
Yes, let's do that.
All right, a 1,500, and what would be the sidewalls and the overall height if we went 1,500?
I think Jamie had said 12 feet was approved and a 20-foot maximum for this lot.
Yes. If you went with the standard maximum. And if you go with the 1,500 square feet, we don't really need to include that in a motion because that's what's allowed anyway.
Right.
So if we would approve the setbacks at this time, then you could go ahead and build what you wanted to build up to the 1,500 square feet, 12-foot sidewalls and 20-foot total height.
That's correct. Yes, we would be fine with that.
All right. Is our board members all right with then doing findings for the setbacks?
Madam Chair, Dave Camerod.
Yes.
If we're going to give up something on setbacks, I'd like to see the river gain and the road lose. You know, I would like to see it shifted away from the river as far as possible. So the building would be closer to the road than the river. So if we have to give up some footage there, I'd like to see more space between the river and the building.
So if I follow you correct, Dave, in this survey, keeping the southwest corner in that footprint, or at least the west edge closer to the road.
Right.
Yeah, it lies better that way anyway, so that's where it would go.
But have less impact with the river then.
Correct.
Okay.
So if we went, right now, the proposed was 33 feet from the road right of way. So if we kept the 33 feet from the road right of way and from the lake right of way saying not more than what was requested, the 66?
Yeah, being not, Madam Chair, not less than 78 feet from the river.
All right. So not less than 78 feet from the river and at the 33 feet from the road?
Not less than 33 feet from the road.
Okay, well, if we're trying to keep it away from the river, if we say not less than.
Yeah, they have a building envelope of 1.5 feet.
Okay. Okay, so not less than. All right. So we will be doing findings of fact to construct a detached residential accessory structure that is not less than 78 feet from the OHWL of the river and not less than 33 feet from the right-of-way of County Road 49.
Madam Chair, question? Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Did we ever get a SWCD review of this site?
There was.
I'm just still concerned about the runoff.
All right, we did receive one that was emailed. And right now, before we go ahead with this, I'll have Jamie just give us just a summary of what that said. It looks like he has it in his hand, maybe, or has it accessible.
Yep, Madam Chair, members of the board, it was emailed with the rest of them. There actually wasn't a map, it was just the written out recommendations, and I'll read them as they are. I have reviewed the request variance applications for September 2020. Based on the site conditions, the Stearns County SWCD would like to offer the following mitigation options to be considered by the Board of Adjustment. These options should not be considered support of the application, only mitigation scenarios if the board chooses to approve the individual application. Jody and Linda Ginningsman, parcel number 36.23756.000 on Sauk River near Cold Spring. Currently, the runoff from the property goes directly to the Sauk River with minimal buffer and continuous slope to the lake. Options for mitigation. Consider a native plant buffer along the shoreline that will capture runoff from the driveway, home, patio, proposed deck, and garages/sheds. The native plant buffer could extend 125 feet along the shoreline and 25 feet landward of the ordinary high water level. Consider routing all of the roof water from the proposed shed to County Road 49 road ditch north of the driveway. This would allow for the stormwater to infiltrate and be treated rather than going to the lake. Considerations for all projects. Native plant buffers should contain plants native to Stearns County and have a diversity of 1/2 native grasses, 1/2 wildflowers, with inclusions of trees and shrubs. Consideration for spacing trees and or shrubs at a minimum of 10-foot spacing along the shoreline is a normal SWCD technical recommendation for stabilization as well as for fish and wildlife benefits. Stormwater basins should be a minimum of 12 inches in depth and contain subsoils capable of infiltrating the runoff within 48 hours. If possible, use native plants for stabilization and increased water infiltration as well as habitat. Please let me know if you have any questions. Sincerely, Greg Berg, Lake Shed Specialist, Stearns County SWCD. And that is all
Jamie,
that we
helps
have.
a lot.
All right, thank
You're
you.
welcome.
And applicant, do you have an emailed copy of that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm suggesting that we go ahead and do the findings, and then during the motion, whoever makes the motion can include portions of that or all that, however they'd like to include in their motion. So the motion will be for the setbacks from the river of not less than 78 feet, from the road not less than 33 feet, and size would fit in with the recommended sizes for the lot size. So question number 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Madam Chair, again, R1 zone residential accessory structures are allowed in the R1 zoned area.
All right, we have a yes for number 1. Does anyone disagree with yes for number 1? Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any related ordinances, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe that it would be in harmony with the official controls as the setback from the road, as we discussed previously, that right-of-way has been vacated, and that they're trying to position it as far away from the Sauk River as possible.
All right, we have a yes for number 2. Anyone disagree with that? I will mark that as a unanimous yes. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, it fits a little better this time under living goals, accessory dwelling unit policies. Number 2, carefully manage ADUs in shoreland areas to ensure densities managed and shoreline aesthetics are not altered.
All right, we have a yes for number 3. Anyone disagree with yes for 3?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I just want to comment. My understanding of an accessory dwelling unit would be like if you had an apartment above your garage or an additional living space that was on your property, not attached to the house. I don't know that this is necessarily an accessory dwelling unit, but I would say that under Lakeshore living policies, well, actually under living goals, that it would be supporting housing options that give people in all life stages and of all economic means viable choices for safe, stable, and affordable homes.
All right. So with that, those comments, you would be a yes as well?
Yeah, Jill is right about that. It's getting late in the day, and so I'll defer to hers. I'll retract mine.
All right. So we will delete the comments for the notes from Jason, but you still are a yes? Jason?
I'm a yes. Yep.
Okay. And then include the comments from Jill as a yes. So we have 2 yeses for number 3. Does anyone disagree with yes for number 3? Hearing none, we'll make it a unanimous yes. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrod, I think that the property owner is showing reasonable things and taking out, increasing the water filtering capability of his property, and to me that is very good.
All right, and I'm going to say yes for number 4 as long as we include the soil and waters recommendations in the conditions. So I would be a yes on number 4. We have 2 yeses for number 4. Anyone disagree with yes? Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe it is unique to the property based off of that sharp decline down to the river and the proximity to the right-of-way for the road.
All right, we have a yes for number 5. Does anyone disagree with yes for 5? Mark that as unanimous, yes. Number 6, the variance if granted maintains the essential character of the locality.
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, it's partially screened, and it's a shed that is of size that fits the rest of the area, so it's appropriate.
All right, number 6, we have a yes. Does anyone disagree with that? All right, then we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations.
Madam Chair, I don't believe economics were discussed as a part of this option.
All right, we have a yes for number 7. Does anyone disagree? All right, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. We are ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I would make a motion that we approve a variance to locate a residential accessory structure not less than 33 feet from the right-of-way of County Road 49 and not less than 78 feet from the ordinary high water level of the Sauk River, with the condition that the applicants implement the water mitigation plan as proposed by SWCD.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, I will second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We will do roll call on the remainder of members. Jill?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And I will also be a yes. So motion carries. If you have additional questions about your requests, please address those to staff during regular business hours via the telephone. And thank you for being with us this evening. And good luck on your project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does staff have anything else for us this evening?
7 for next
month. There are 7 items on the agenda for next month at this time. And when does that when does the deadline for applications coming in? Oh, it was last Monday. So we know that it's 7. It won't increase from 7. All right. So we will see you next month.
I just
go ahead, Jill.
Yep, I just wanted to say for this last agenda item where whoever wrote up the packet entry where they split off request number 1, request number 2, and request number 3, just because it was really complex. I appreciate that you wrote it up that way. It made it easier for me to identify what the separate things could be. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Hey, Jill, the next time I say something dumb, you don't have to be nice about it. You can just say, Jason, you're an idiot and you're reading that wrong.
Well, no, everybody on this board has been nice to me whenever I've said something dumb. So everybody gets their chances.
Well, I appreciate you being nice. It won't be the last time I say something dumb, I promise.
I am curious on the 7 for next month. Are there any on Pelican Lake?
I don't believe so, Dennis. So you won't have to travel that road this month.
How many different sites on that road have we visited now? Like 2 or 3?
I think that's 3.
Yeah.
There's only 5 or 6 houses there, so odds are we won't be back for a while, hopefully.
Eventually, they'll all have gone through. So.
Right.
And then they're going to be sold, and somebody's going to need to rebuild.
Right. Exactly. Thank you, guys.
Good night, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Move to close the meeting.
All right. We have a motion to close or to adjourn.
Second.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. See you next month.
I would have a cute